Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the podcast. Now, sometimes life forces you to stop, to reflect, to question, and to completely rethink everything you thought mattered. Today's guest has lived through moments most people cannot even imagine, from fighting for his partner's recovery to facing his own mortality. We are joined by Dean Weitenhagen, whose journey, I hope I pronounced your name correctly, Dean.
You did, yes, thank
Having,
you. Yes.
okay, okay, wonderful. Whose journey through illness, loss, survival, and reflection led him to confront one of life's biggest questions. Why are we here? Dean, welcome to the podcast. It's a pleasure to have you.
It's a pleasure and an honor for me to be here. I like very much to relate my story to give hope to people.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Dean. Now, Dean, before we kick things off, here on Thought At Last, I and my listeners, we want to get to know our guests on a personal level. So can you tell us more about yourself?
Yes, well, I was born in the Midwest. My parents were farmers for the first 7 years of my life. Then we moved to a small village of 100 people, very small. Uh, I had one older brother, 3 years older than me. Unfortunately, he has passed away a number of years ago
Oh
already.
man,
Yeah.
so sorry.
Yeah, yeah, thank you. Um, I had a wonderful childhood. I have to say, my parents were both, hardworking, uh, great people. I miss them. I look forward to seeing them again. But
Wow.
then I started out of high school. I wanted to be an architect, but my counselor said wasn't good enough in math. So I decided that wasn't right. So I went to school to be an air traffic controller of all things. And
Yes.
during that 2 year school, I started working at a television station part time to make some money. And when
Yes.
when the air traffic control school ended at the end of 2 years, we graduated. There were no jobs because the Vietnam War. This would have been 1973. The Vietnam War was ending, and we were bringing back all of the people from there, thankfully. And we had
Yes.
thousands of air traffic controllers there, and so they were all coming back, took the jobs. I never looked back and went into the broadcast television business, never on the air, background, directing, producing news. Then I started running a couple of divisions at the television station. And then in '87, um I got out of the television business because I wanted to stay in. I wanted to be a general manager. Well, they take all of those people from the sales department. I had no sales experience, so I moved to a station in Des Moines, Iowa, to be in sales. So I did that for well till '94, and then to continue in broadcast television as a general manager, I would have had to have moved my family.
Yes.
My children were young, moved them out of Iowa. We loved Iowa. My parents were alive. My wife at that time, her parents were still alive. So I just jumped into the commercial real estate business unexpectedly and enjoyed that for 26 years. So I've really had two, fulfilling careers in my view. And uh, here I am in 2026. I live in Scottsdale,
Yes.
Arizona. We'll get into all of that about how I ended up here with my illness. But my wife, Patsy, I met 20 years ago, and it was a wonderful new relationship in my life. I thank God for that. And
Yes.
she was raised in Arizona, and she said one day, let's just move. And so we did. So here I am.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
Awesome. Thank you so much for letting us to get to know you, Dean. And once again, welcome to Thought Atlas. So, Dean, you had built a full life, family, career, relationships. What did that chapter look like for you?
You mean the past life? I mean, the first 70. I'm next week I
Yes.
turn 73. So
Wow. Happy
yeah,
birthday in advance.
yes, thank you. It's been quite a roller coaster. The first up until Patsy's illness, which was late 2015, early 2016. I was the typical, I think, American man, I had my careers. I worked hard. I tried to do the right thing always. I'm sure I didn't always. But then Patsy's illness was right before mine, and through all of that, I just started to rethink about life. I had much time. I was in the hospital for 4 months over the period of those 2 years, from 17 through 19. And one has a lot of time to think about life and more, and about my life. I mean, I wasn't worried about anybody else's. I thought about my life and what I had accomplished, and
Yes.
was it everything I thought it should be, I guess. And that's what I write in the book is coming to terms with what I think, why I think we're here, why I perceive why God made we humans,
Yes.
well, we can get into that, but here I am, and I had a fatal disease,
Yes.
and was cured, and so here I am. I just, the book is called "I Just Turned Two," and that's because when you have stem cell transplant, the doctors consider that, not really, but they do, as your new
Yes.
birthday. I
Wow.
was in March, yeah, March of 19. So I'm I'm seven now. When I started to write the book, I was only two, hence the title. I just turned two, but I'm seven now, and I'm grateful for every day because having come down with that fatal cancer twice, and
Wow.
survived it, I'm very grateful, and gratefulness, I've learned, is a powerful and positive and needed thing to have in our lives. To be grateful is I won't say it's everything, but it should encompass a lot of our thoughts daily. To be grateful
Yes.
for what we have.
Wow. Thank you so much for that wonderful response, team. And I'm actually quite happy that fortunately you were able to overcome, cancer twice. Oh my God. It's
Yeah.
scary. Yeah. So how did meeting Patsy change your life?
Oh gosh. Oh gosh. I had been married for 30 years, which and I was deeply saddened when my first wife
Mm.
decided she didn't want to be married anymore. It really ripped my heart out. I was depressed for a year and a half, and thankfully I saw a psychiatrist, a psychologist, and
Yes.
he said to me, he said, "What do you want?" And I said, and this was probably about a year and a half into the point where my wife had said she didn't want to be married. We were still married. Um,
Yes.
I'm not sure she was even living with me yet, but I told the psychologist, I said, I want my wife back. And he said something very startling at the time that I didn't agree with, but I do now. And that is, Dean, you need to get your life together for you, for yourself, and not your wife. And then when you do that, if your wife, you both believe, can be a part of that life that you understand for yourself and want for yourself, then so be it. But if not, you shouldn't go there first. And I said, oh, that's not right. But he was right. And I started to ponder that, and he was right. I needed to live my life for me at that point. My children were grown, and
Yes.
so I did. I started to do that, and then now these many years later, probably back in, well, it was after the transplant, but I discovered a gentleman by the name of Dr. DeMartini, and he says this. He says he believes our souls, soul, our source of unconditional love, walks down
Yes.
walks down the center line of life with bad and good both coming at it all the time, and it pays no attention to either because it understands good can come from bad and bad can come from good. And he said, and he still teaches this, when something that you perceive as bad happens to you, sit down by yourself uh, and take the time to write down. He says 40 things. I've never gotten 40, but
Wow.
write down on a piece of paper all the good that has come from that bad happening in your life. Well, the first time I heard that, I thought, well, okay, I'll try that. So the worst thing that had happened to me in my life up until this point, I mean, the great thing was I found my wife Patsy 20 years ago, wonderful. But the
Yes.
bad thing was still my divorce. I mean, it was such a bad thing in my life, and so I sat down and I wrote 20 things, wrote down 20 good things that have happened because of the divorce. And certainly the top one was meeting Patsy. I wouldn't have met her had
Yes.
I not been going through that. And so that opened my eyes that I won't tell anybody else how to live their life, but I
Yeah.
need to always look at all sides of an issue and never look at things being necessarily bad because good can come from bad. I've learned that in my life, and I try to live that way.
Wow. Thank you so much for that wonderful response, Dean. And I'm actually like quite glad that during a tough time in your life, you were able to meet someone so wonderful. You were able to meet Patsy. Now, Dean, I want to ask you, when she had a stroke, everything shifted. What was that moment like for you?
Well, it was terrible. It was terrible. She was here, and her parents were still alive. Her mother was still alive, living here in Scottsdale, Arizona, and she would visit her every month. And she was visiting her mother and got to the airport to return home. And at the airport, she had what they call a TIA, which is it mimics a stroke. It's not a real stroke yet, but it mimics a stroke. So they called an
Yes.
ambulance. She was in the waiting room at the airlines at the terminal. They called an ambulance. They took her to the hospital. She stayed overnight. They said, "You've had a TIA and we're going to release you." So they did. Unfortunately, they gave her the okay to get right on an airplane the next day and come back to Iowa. We were living in Iowa, so she did.
Yes.
I picked her up at the airport. We went home, went to sleep. I woke up. I had a business meeting that morning with a new client, and she said, I don't feel well this morning. I think I'll stay in bed. I said, absolutely, you go ahead. And so she did. Well, I had my business meeting. I turned my phone off, as I do when I'm meeting with clients. And when I was done with the meeting, I turned it on, and there were multiple messages from her to hurry, come home. And so I hopped in the car and I drove way too fast and got home, and the ambulance was parked out in front of our driveway, and she was already in the ambulance. So I beat the ambulance downtown to the hospital. Long story short, she had had a stroke, and she was in bed at the hospital, not speaking
Yes.
really, and
Oh
she
man.
had lost her right arm. She couldn't move her right arm at all. Couldn't, and her right leg was dearly affected, as was her speech and her thinking. And she was in the hospital 10 days. And so I went to see her 3 times a day, all those 10 days. And in the hospital, she started a little rehab, which was to no avail. She still didn't have any right arm, could barely walk. And so after the hospital stay, when they discharged her, we went to 3 months, I think 2 or 3 times a week of independent rehabilitation there in Des Moines, Iowa. At the end of three
Yes.
months, there was just no change. She still couldn't use her right arm. Her leg was
Oh
still
my.
vastly bad, and the neurologist at the hospital said, "You're going to have to just get used to it." And we were devastated. I mean, she was devastated physically and mentally from not having the use of your body like you've had your whole life. And she was an active woman. And
Yes.
so we both always had good luck with acupuncture. So she had heard about a new acupuncturist in a little town south of Des Moines. We went, and when I went to pick her up, she got in the car and she said, "Pack your bags. We're going to China." Well, this acupuncturist told her that they cure they cure strokes in China, and no one had ever
Wow.
given us that. No one had ever given us that hope. And so we contacted a woman from Iowa who had had a terrible stroke about 5 years prior, and had gone to China herself and been cured. She was in a wheelchair when she went there, and she walked out. And so her
Wow.
church, yeah, her church made it a mission of the church to send her back to China to live and to help Americans come there for treatment with, um, traditional Chinese medicine, TCM, they call
Yes.
it.
Yes.
And so we found out about her, we called her, and within a month or so, we were in China. And we went for 3 months. We booked our stay for 3 months. This woman that was the coordinator made the arrangements at a beautiful, wonderful hotel there in Tianjin, which is a large city, 20 million people, southeast of
Wow.
Beijing. And so we checked in. She met us at the airport. We checked in, and 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, actually a teaching doctor from the local TCM college would come to the hotel room and treat her 5 days a week. And so would treat her with acupuncture and with a herbal tea, which was horrible. I couldn't have drank it, but Patsy never said a word. She drank it. And then a
Wow.
massage, a medical massage they call Twina. Well, anyway, so a month goes by. I'm there. I decide I'm going to come back to the States to work. I was still working in the commercial real estate business. So I came back for a month. And in that month, unfortunately, Patsy's mother passed away. And But I went back at the end of the second month to be with her, and our regular routine when we were there was we would get up and we would go downstairs to there were three restaurants. We went to the one for breakfast, and we would have breakfast, and we're sitting there eating breakfast as normal. And she said, "Look at this," and she reached up and touched her nose with her right arm, and I was,
Wow.
yeah, it was it was quite a moment. I mean, it would be easy to cry right now thinking back about it, but he had gotten her
Yes.
that far along. Well, by the end of the third month, she was able to use her right arm. Now it was weak, but she could use it. She could raise her arm, use it to eat, to live
Yes.
life. And so at the end of the third month, we traveled China for a week on the high-speed train. We went down to Singapore, and then Singapore? No, not Singapore. Yeah, Singapore, I think. Anyway, Tianjin, and then back to, and so we came home, and it was wonderful. I would take her out to drive her car and learn how to drive again with a weaker,
Wow.
but she could hang on the steering wheel. Well, our lives had just opened up again. I mean, it was so dark and overcast when she had the stroke, and you think about not being able to use one of your arms. It's a big deal, and to not be able to
Yes.
walk properly. But now she got her life back, and I mean, we were joyous. Goodness sakes, it was. And they did what they said. They could cure strokes, and I tell people when I tell the story, I wish that we would allow those doctors, TCM doctors, to come
To
here and
come to
practice.
US.
Yeah, and
Yes.
to practice here. So anyway,
And aside them coming to the US to just practice, they could actually collaborate with American scientists and probably
yeah,
develop a much more effective method that
yes.
actually help more people.
Yes, I
Yes.
mean, strokes affect millions of people, and it's devastating. I mean, you
Yes.
lose one whole side of your body many times, unless it even kills you. I mean, they kill a lot of people too. But
Yes.
yes, I'm now. What I will say, Patsy sees a acupuncturist here, an Asian doctor, who has
Yes.
learned the stroke protocol. So because there's
Oh wow.
TCM has been around for 2,000 years, the acupuncture part of it. And of course, a
Wow.
little a little side note, she was being treated one day, and I asked the doctor, an interpreter, right, have have you folks been in China been practicing acupuncture? He said over 2,000 years. I said, no, 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 doctor, it can't be. You didn't have needles like this because they're just hair thin. The needles they use, you didn't have needles like this 2,000 years ago. He said, no,
Yeah.
they had sharpened stones. And they weren't sharp enough to puncture the skin, but sharp enough to find the pressure points inside the body. And that's how they learned to do it. But the stroke protocol to fix strokes really only came around in the last 100 years. But they fix
Wow.
strokes. So we were blessed and so
Imagine,
lucky.
yes, yes. Imagine having
We're
2,000
lucky.
years of experiences. It's
Yes,
just mind blowing. Wow.
it
Wow.
is mind blowing. Yes, it is.
Wow.
It is.
Wow. Honestly, Patsy has been through a lot. I'm so happy for her that she recovered and
Yes,
she
yes.
was
It's a
she's okay
wonderful.
now. And yes,
Yes, yes.
yes,
Oh, yes, yes. She has a full life. She actually, this is in a little side note, about a year and a half ago, she's obviously prone to strokes for some reason medically, but
yes.
she had some mini strokes and she was really out of it. She didn't know who I was. It affected her mind that much and didn't know where we
Oh
lived.
my.
I know, I know, but through continued acupuncture here and the hyperbaric chamber, which just forces pure oxygen into your body, it forced pure oxygen into her body and her brain, and she came out of it, and she's doing fine, and she keeps up
Wow.
with the acupuncture and with the hyperbaric chamber. It's wonderful.
Wow. One of the things that gladdens my heart the most is the fact that she has such a wonderful person as yourself by her side. That's one of the things that actually makes me very happy. And I'm glad that throughout our journey, you were always there with her,
Oh
praying for
yes,
her, encouraging her, and
yes,
it's just
oh
wonderful.
yeah,
So, yeah, seeing Patsy recover must have been, very powerful as you have described. What did that
oh
teach
yeah.
you about resilience?
Well, I never lost hope. I mean, we were so when her stroke happened, and then after months of rehab, no results. I mean, we were down. It was, but we never gave up hope of our life. I mean, we never gave up our love for each other, and I would stand by her through anything. And so that took us through, and then to be able to find TCM and be able, because it wasn't inexpensive to go to China for 3 months,
Yes.
but we had that wherewithal to do that and then come back and get her life back. I mean, there's always hope. There should
Yes.
always be hope in one's life.
Wow. Thank you so much for that wonderful response. Now, Dean, immediately after, Patsy recovered and it seemed as if life had gone back to normal, all of a sudden a diagnosis came in and they said you have cancer. How did you take that? How did you process all that? I can't even begin to imagine what it was like for you.
You
Wow.
know, we were here. We were. They call us snowbirds when you come from somewhere else and you come to Arizona in the wintertime because the winters here are so wonderful, 70 degrees,
Yes.
sunny. And in
Wow.
Iowa it's cold and snow. Anyway, so we were here in January of 17. We had gone to China in 16. In January of
Papa.
17, we were here, and I was diagnosed with AML, acute myeloid leukemia, which is fatal. And
Oh my God.
I again, I never gave up hope. I've never been afraid of dying. That's the faith that I have in my God. I'm not afraid of dying. Uh, I look forward to seeing my parents and my brother again and others who have passed before me. But I never gave up hope, and I didn't think about dying. I mean, they said, okay, we're going to treat you with chemotherapy, and then we'll
Yes,
go
sir.
for there. From there, yeah. So I went back to the Midwest and went to Mayo Clinic's main office and headquarters is in Rochester, Minnesota, just north of Des Moines, 3-hour drive. So I flew back that night when I was diagnosed here, and they admitted me at Mayo Clinics, and for 2 months they treated me with chemotherapy,
Yes.
but and they killed the cancer, but the cancer will
Wow.
come back unless you have a stem cell transplant. In other words, the chemotherapy kills the bone marrow in you, which is where all of your blood cells are produced. And
Yes.
to get rid of the cancer cells, they have to kill all of the all of the blood cells. So
Oh my
you
God.
you have, oh, I know. So uh, immediately after that, they looked for a donor. Well, there are 10 biomarkers. I don't know what those all are, but there are 10 of them that they try and match you with a potential donor. And the closest one I had at that time, this was 17, March of 17 about, was my
Yes.
son, and he only matched 5 of the 10. And I had done some research about stem cell donation and the outcome of that. And the lower the match, the less likely it was to work in the end and the cancer coming
Yes.
back. And so I said, no, I'm not going to do this right now with my son. And my wife and I found a naturopathic doctor who treats cancer naturopathically. And we treated with him a week at a time, on and off for the next 2 years. And I thought he was keeping the cancer away, but in January of 19, it returned. And we
Oh
were
my
here
God.
again. We were here again just by happenstance, being snowbirds again from Iowa to Arizona in January of 19. And so I went to my doctor here at Mayo Clinics, and she put me in the hospital that day. And so again, for the next 2 months, more chemotherapy, harder chemotherapy, because cancer knows how to rework itself. And so we had killed it the first time 2 years prior,
Yes.
but it came back in a more virulent form. And so they changed the chemotherapy to harder and stronger. 2 months of chemotherapy, and so thank goodness, it's a God thing, I say. I had 3 possible donors at that time.
Wow.
In that 2 years, I went from none really to three. So they picked a young man out of Ohio here in the States, and
Yes.
on March 13th, 2019, I I was given the stem cell transplant, and here I am 7 years later. Now there was a process in there because again they have killed all of your bone marrow, and the donor's stem cells are in me now, and they're working to rebuild the bone marrow, which they do, and to
Yes.
then produce new blood cells, reds, whites, and platelets. They haven't done it completely yet. I mean, that takes time, and so I went back twice a day for infusions for weeks here in the morning and at night because I didn't have any production of blood cells. I needed somebody else's, so they would give me blood transfusions. But eventually,
Yes.
certainly over about the last 6 years, well, now it's been seven, and earlier than that, this new stem cell in me created new blood cells, and I now create all my own reds, blood, whites, and platelets, and
Oh wow.
uh,
Awesome.
I, I feel great. I sleep well, I eat clean, and Patsy and I are living life again together. It's quite miraculous. Yeah, it's just been quite a journey.
Wow. Honestly, Dean, you're one very strong human being. You're very, very strong. You're determined, and you never actually gave up. You did not give up on Patsy, and you didn't give up on yourself, and that's just absolutely mind blowing. I actually kind of envy your resilience in a way, honestly, because I some people would just hear, maybe some kind of it's not cancer, maybe just some kind of ailment. It's treatable, but it's actually, kind of fatal, it's dangerous, and they would just break down and they would want to some of them
Sure.
won't go as far as ending their lives by themselves. But not to think of
Oh yeah.
yeah, you had cancer, you fought it the first time, it went away. It came back again. Oh my God. I can't even begin to at that point anybody would break down and honestly start, you know what? I think this thing is just after me. Let me just hand myself to it and let it just be done with me. Honestly. Wow.
Well, yes, yeah. I to ending my own life, I would never consider that. And I tell you a quick story. My mother,
Yes.
near the end of her life, I was with her every week. She lived about 3 hours away, so I would go see her. She was in a nursing home, and one day I went, and my father had passed away 5 years before, in 2010. And so this was 15. This was right before Patsy's cancer. And I was with her, and she said, Dean, I'm really, really tired. I want to go be with your father, with your dad, and be done with
Yes.
this. And I said, well, Mom, I can't kill you. I can't do that. I can't bring myself to do that. So, and
Oh
she said,
man.
well, I can't. She can't. And her religious upbringing told her she shouldn't kill herself. And so I've taken that. It's just, and I know there are nations now who are allowing you to pick euthanasia. I'm not for that myself. It just goes against my every being. But I did not ever give up hope. I think most of that was my faith, and I wanted to live and be around Patsy. We've been together
Yes.
now 20 years, and this and her cancer, or her stroke, and my cancer now is, it's whatever, it's 12 years ago or it started, and so we're not giving up. And I don't know how long I'll live. I don't believe the cancer's ever coming back. Yeah,
It
and
definitely
and I
won't come
don't.
back.
It can, but I mean, I've been so healthy now for 7 years. I just don't see it coming back. And I have many blood tests. I have many doctors still, because chemotherapy of the kind I had is very hard on your body, on other parts of other organs, heart,
Yes.
lungs. I mean, it affects them. And so I'm constantly being checked and with blood tests, and there's just no sign of any cancer cells. They call them blast, blast cells, and I haven't had any blast cells for those 7 years since the
Oh,
transplant. So it's
oh, I mean,
all
that
it's all
that's
good.
wonderful news.
It
That's
is.
absolutely wonderful and fabulous news. Wow. Dane, honestly, thank you so much for sharing your story. Your story has actually inspired me to know that no matter what you're going through in life, provided you don't give up, you always have hope, you remain resilient, you can actually overcome anything. Honestly, do you know what it means to overcome a life-threatening, kind of sickness, cancer for that matter? In this part of the world where I live in, cancer is something that, oh my God, when somebody
Oh
hears
yeah.
they have cancer, the next thing they start thinking about is how they are going to, they start, what, let me share my properties amongst my children. My time has come, that kind of stuff. So you can imagine how crazy it is. And the fact that there's somebody on this earth in the form of you, Dean, that survived it twice. And it's not just, your everyday kind of, there are cancers that, okay, everybody knows this type. It's a regular kind of cancer. Lots of people survive it. The way you described the one that happened to you, you said it's a fatal kind. It's the type that the chances of you surviving are slim to none, and you were able
Oh
to
yeah.
make it out, and not just once, but twice. It's honestly, it's honestly inspiring. So I wanted to ask you, you've wrestled with this question: why are we here? What
Yes.
answer did you arrive at?
Well, I went back to my faith, which is easy and calming, and for me. And I've read the Bible every day for many years, probably 30 years at least. And so I went back with that question about, here I have survived two fatal bouts of cancer. What should the rest of my life look like? What would God, my God who created me, want me to do? And I went back, and it's pretty easy to me, because Jesus in the New Testament uh,
Yes,
tells people. He said, someone comes and says to him and says, "What should I do?" And he said, "Well, the Ten Commandments." And the gentleman said, "Well, I do all of those. Is that all?" And Jesus said, "Well, no. Love God and love your neighbor as yourself." And so
yes.
that's why I believe he created us. Those two things are why, of course, he wants us to have a rich and full life, but he wants us to love him. He created us, for heaven's sakes, and he wants us to love our fellow human beings as we love ourselves. So that's what I try and do. It's not hard for me to love God, never has been. That loving your neighbor thing can be difficult, but I
Definitely.
yeah, but I give it my best every day to
Yes,
look around and help people. If it's in my words, in my deeds, I try and love them for who they are, where they are in life, and and I love to, through those actions. I'm not a preacher. I don't have the chance every week to stand up in front of people and give messages and sermons about bringing people to God. But I think through my actions and my word,
Yes.
I can do that. So that's why I think He created us. He created us to love Him and to love everybody else. And it's not easy. Always, it's not.
it's
People
it's
hurt
a
us.
chore. It's
Yes.
a chore, but it's the effort that actually matters.
Yes, it is. You're right. You're right.
Yes.
So that's how I look at life.
Yes, wonderful. Thank you so much for that wonderful response, Dean. Now, Dean, you mentioned that there are simple rules that help navigate adversity. Now, what are these rules?
Well, uh, forgive others. That's one.
Yes,
Um, forgive others. That's really a big one. Um, uh, love each other. There's the other one. Um, you know, earlier we talked about gratitude is
yes,
high on the list. All of those attitudes about that we have for ourselves, and sometimes it's ourselves is the hardest challenge to that, is to, because we all sin, um, and all sin is looked at harshly by God. I mean, all of it, from words we say, and or I mean, physical things, stealing, obviously. I don't, but
yes,
all sin is looked at, I believe, by God. In fact, we're just going through a Bible study. All sin, from what we would consider small sins, uh, thinking, saying something bad about somebody behind their back or whatever, they're all bad. And so, you know, our attitude about ourselves is so important. Never give up, but forgiveness and gratitude. I think those are the things. If we daily think about those, love God, love your fellow human, forgive them, uh, have gratitude for what we have. And even as I said, when the bad things happen, and they will, that things we achieve at least, think of the good
yes.
things that come of it. And there are good things that come from bad. So that's how I try and live my life.
Wow. Dean, honestly, this has been a very deeply moving conversation. One that really makes you stop and reflect on what truly matters, especially when you know that everything could be gone in an instant. And when you know that, actually, especially when you're not even aware, you don't have any guarantee that, you know, you're going to be alive tomorrow, but just through sheer belief, sheer faith,
Yeah.
and hope, you survive and you make
Yeah.
it to the next day. I've actually been forced to think in depth and decide what do I really want to do with my life. I really need to make sure that I'm living my
Yeah.
life you know,
Yes.
according to how I should, because at any day anything could happen and it could all be gone in an instant. And anything could happen that could also just put me straight. Sometimes we experience things that they don't necessarily want to destroy us, but just to show us that we need to pay attention to the most important things, the things that matters
Yes.
to us, our loved ones, and what we want to leave
Yeah.
behind when we leave this earth. Dean, thank you so much for
Yes.
being a guest on my podcast. Thank you for sharing your wonderful and inspiring story. Thank you for sharing your pain, your joy, your survival, and everything with us. It's been such a pleasure. Where can my listeners, learn more about your story, connect with you, and do you have a book, right? I believe you wrote a book.
Yes, yes.
Get
I have a
yes,
book. It's my. You can go to my website. It's my name, Dean Weitenhagen. You have to spell it for people. .com
yeah,
or Amazon. I just turned two. How I learned to live after nearly dying. It's a story of hope, and well worth people's time. Short book, very short. Uh, who are going through things in their life that are hard and difficult, and give them hope and gratitude. So I think it's important.
yes. Thank you so much once again, Dean. And for everyone listening, I'll make sure to. Oh, what am I saying? It's already in the show notes. If you're watching the recording or you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, Dean's And the link to Dean's website is in the show notes, and you can get his books on Amazon. Dean, once again, it's been such a pleasure to have you on my podcast. Do you have any, finishing words, any food for thought for I and my listeners before we wrap up for today?
Uh, uh, well, life is a gift. Uh, Live it to its fullest every day. I'm not working at a job anymore. I'm past that, but
Yes.
I'm grateful for all of those experiences. And again, I think one of the main things is to remember, meet people where they are, love them for who they are, where they are at the time, and be grateful for everything. Be grateful for everything that happens because it is all going to happen to us all the time. Everything, good, bad that we perceive, but it's all meant for a purpose.
Yes. Thank you so much, Dean. Thank you once again. Thank you for coming on my podcast. It's been such a pleasure. So I'm going to stop recording now. So I and Dean can talk privately. It's not for you, my listeners. All right.